If someone were to walk up to a piano and play a dissonant chords where the notes don't sound good together, you might wonder why such a thing exists in music at all. On their own, dissonant chords are unsettling. But together, in music, in context, they actually are quite useful. You can use dissonant chords to create tension, and then you can resolve that tension with a consonant chord, a chord where the notes all sound nice together. So this process of bringing tension into the music and then resolving it, musicians call that going home. Now, imagine that you're listening to a jazz song on a CD, if you can envision such antiquated technology. And just before that final bringing it home, just at the moment of maximum tension, the CD player hangs up. And it just repeats the same chord over and over again. Bah, 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 bah. It would be a really unsettling moment. It would cause a lot of tension. It would be disorienting. And in a sense, I think that this is a perfect metaphor for what's going on in the life of the disciples in that period between Jesus' trial, crucifixion, and death and his resurrection on Sunday. For the disciples, Good Friday is anything but good. It is the worst possible catastrophe that they can imagine. On a personal level, they've lost their friend and mentor. On a professional level, they felt like they were going to be the inner circle of the up-and-coming king, and now those ambitions have completely gone off the rails. But it's also a crisis of faith for them as well. Jesus was God's Messiah. They firmly believed that. And if Jesus was God's Messiah, then he was the one who was supposed to deliver Israel. He was the one that the scriptures were pointing towards, and yet he's dead. If ever there was a time for despair, Good Friday was that time. Faith in God doesn't come easily when it looks like God's victory is impossible. And right now, their lives are one big crescendo of dissonance because they feel like their whole world is falling apart. Now, Jesus had told them this is what was going to happen. In Mark's gospel, for example, there are 3 separate times where Jesus predicts that he is going to go to Jerusalem, be rejected, be killed, and rise again on the 3rd day. But the disciples don't seem to understand or don't seem to remember. Now, it's easy for us to judge the disciples. Oh, Jesus told them. How could they have ever doubted? But their experience told them that that was the end of the line. Dead people don't come back to life. Even the most powerful king has no more power after he's shuffled off this mortal coil. Victory looked impossible, even though we as Christians know that in 3 days, God would do the impossible. I think we can often relate to the disciples' experience. While we follow a Lord who we claim is sovereign over all things, over sickness, over scarcity, over even death, there are times when our experience seems to suggest otherwise. It doesn't always feel like we're moving from glory to glory. Victory sometimes feels like an impossibility, like my life and this world are too twisted and distorted by the effects of sin and selfishness that God could ever make it better. But God has overcome the impossible before. Easter Sunday ended the dissonance that the apostles were experiencing with a resolution so grand it was beyond their wildest imaginings. And we live in a period of cacophonous dissonance, and we can also doubt God's ability to resolve it. But like the disciples, we are heirs to a promise that God will set all things right. And from their story and their testimony, we can see an example of how God does this, how God can snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. And so no matter how bleak things look, no matter how overwhelming the dissonance seems to us, God will sound the final chord, resolve the tension, and bring us home.